Now, the curious thing about the fourth mega reality paper is this. While we were promised that we would all be in paperless offices by this time in a paperless society, just the opposite has happened. We actually encounter 3 times the paper today per person as we did in 1985. 3 times! If you were to stack the amount of paper a typical person in this room encounters in the course of a given year, are you ready for this? Are you sitting down? 55 feet! You'd have to go past this ceiling. 55 feet, a little more than a foot per person per week. In Japan, it's a little less. China, a little less. Germany, France, every place else, a little less. In the U.S., we lead the world in papering each other almost into oblivion. Our credo has become, I photocopy, therefore I am.
When Jeff Davidson takes center stage, audiences quickly realize that they're in for a positive, memorable experience.
You go into a shoe store, an athletic shoe store today, they say to you, what'll it be? Air up, air out, pump down. You go to buy a tennis racket, you know, this kind of handle, that kind of handle. You go to buy a bike, a simple thing like a bike. What'll it be? 10 speed, 15 speed, 21 speed, men's bike, woman's bike, mountain bike, trail bike, dirt bike, racing bike. The New York Times, thank you, I appreciate a well-developed sense of humor. The New York Times said in an article that people today are experiencing extreme anxiety. You ready for this, people in the balcony? When shopping for leisure goods. Leisure goods. I mean, what a society we've created. We're inundated by choices. So hereafter, you want to make fewer choices in a given day, but you make them the ones that count. If a coworker says to you, where do you want to go for lunch? And you've got the various cafeterias to choose from, you say, you decide. Because of all the lunches you've ever had, the good ones and the bad ones, the ones that gave you heartburn, you can't recall 20 at any given time. They don't make that much difference as much as we think lunch is important. They don't make that much difference in the grand scope of things. Now, I'll prove to you that most of you here are besieged by too many choices. And please, raise your hand proudly when your category is called. How many here are single or used to be single? I was hoping for 100% on that one. Go with me on a plane ride, if you will. We're traveling from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles. It's a jumbo jet. There's 500 people on this plane. We're going to be in the sky for 5 hours. Your assignment on this flight, you're 25 years old now still, by the way. Your assignment on this flight is to meet your future mate. And if you don't, you never will. Can you do it? How many think under that scenario, how many think they could do it? All right, picky crowd. Just to spice it up a little, we're going to add in the flight attendants. And the pilots. Now how many think you might be able to do it? A few more, all right. I say if you had to, you could. Suppose your choice of a future mate was confined to the next town over, where there are only 10,000 people. Just pick any town of 10,000 people near here. Has anybody got a town in mind? Yell it, please. Bernie? Bernie like it sounds? Like a guy's name. All right, Bernie. Bernie TX. Could you meet your future mate based on the population of Bernie TX? How many think you could do it? I don't know. A lot of you think no. One time, there were only 10,000 people on earth. And if they all had the same attitude as you, none of us would be here. My point is, when you're besieged by too many choices, whether it's choosing mates or whether it's various ways you can go in solving a problem at work, the normal human response is to shut down, is to believe that there are too few choices, to act as if there are too few choices. How do you counteract that? You selectively limit the field. You selectively choose those things that are important and stick with those and have the mental and emotional strength to not let your peripheral vision take hold. I feel very fortunate. My audiences seem to enjoy my presentations as much as I enjoy giving them. For me, it's a huge reward when someone comes up to me after a presentation and says, "You really focused on the critical issues for me right now. I've learned many things I can take back to my office and apply immediately." But these are just different approaches, mental conniptions, if you will, a twist and a turn for getting started when sometimes you find it hard to get started. Everyone, please clasp your hands like this. Notice, is your left thumb over your right hand? How many have left thumb over your right? All right, put those down. How many have your right over your left? All right, now, listen carefully while your hands are still clasped. How many of you are righties who have your left thumb on top? All right. How many of you are righties who have your right thumb on top? All right, so you see it's not related to what handedness you are. How many of you are lefties who have your left thumb on top? How many of you are lefties who have your right thumb on top? I'm amazed you could even follow those directions. Thank you. It's not related to handedness. It's related to how you first started doing this. Now, clasp your hands again and switch so that the other thumb is on top. You probably haven't done this in about 20 years. How does it feel? Does it feel comfortable to anyone? Not a person in the room. 1, 2, 3. Switch back for a moment. Whoa. Gosh, hot. Thanks, Jeff. All right, switch back. All right, the gurus say that if you were to clasp your hands in the opposite manner for 21 days in a row, after 21 days, the new way would feel comfortable. Do you believe that? I mean, I have not done that, but it takes 21 days for such a habit to sink in. Not to say that the old way will feel strange, but that the new way will feel comfortable. Any system change that you embrace is going to feel like the wrong thumb on top for a while. Anytime you've been merged, acquired, spun off, reorganized, it's going to feel like that for a while. The while might be years, hopefully not. All right, now look down. How many of you are wearing shoes with laces? All right. How many of you could untie your shoe, one shoe, so that when you wrap the laces around and pull the bow, you have the opposite effect of how you normally tie your laces? I didn't say that well, but you know what I'm talking about. Once again, 21 days. Right, right. In 21 days, they say you could reverse the way you tie your laces, and it would feel just fine. Now last, everyone with a belt, please stand up. Those of you without a belt may take a snooze. Please, if it's convenient to do so, take a look at your belt. take it off and put it on in the other direction. Yes. Yes. Remember, you're not going to remember me, you're not going to remember a thing I said, but you're going to remember the belt. What if we have someone else do it for you?
That is so right. Can we choose?
All right, you should almost be finished. Now, it may feel wrong, and when you're done, please be seated. It may feel wrong. It may feel wrong in actually changing it, but I assure you, in a minute or so, your waist won't know the difference. This is change on a micro level. Macro is the same. It's just harder to diagnose and see, and harder to accept. You spend 30 minutes a day cleaning your house, but you prefer not to. In the course of 48 years, you will consume 1 solid year of your life. But is it a year of 9 to 5? No, it's a year of 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for 1 year. Said yet another way, if you can find anybody to clean your house, do it. Independent of the state of the economy, independent of whether you got that bonus or that raise or whatever, because the money will pass. You won't miss it, but you will appreciate the time that you save. There's nobody on earth who feels great about the deluge. Nobody feels as if they're keeping up. There's not a president, a king, a prime minister, a Nobel laureate, a head of a university, a PhD. Sometimes it's easy within a company, within an industry to say, oh, it's because John McConnell is making us do this, or John Christie is doing that, or Ralph Roberts says this. But I have to tell you, the phenomenon is going on every place. Every place where people hold positions of responsibility, every place in the Western and industrialized world, every place where there's competition to serve customers, the same phenomenon is going on. More information than anybody has ever contemplated a populace could be subjected to. That was 1996. In 1999, the equation had fallen to 1 second. In other words, every second in 1999, more information was generated on Earth than what? You could take in the rest of your life. And by 2002, it dropped to partial second, and today it's instantaneous. What that tells us is we have to be more vigilant, more focused, show more strength. And what I mean by that is mental and emotional strength to let go of the secondary issues and focus only on the primary issues. Because if we do not, indeed, our entire day, week, year, career, and lives will be consumed by all that interesting information. But we won't be serving the customer, we won't be earning a profit, we won't be building the company, and so forth. We have to be the first generation in the history of the earth that recognizes that there's a lot of great material out there that merits our attention, but we've got to let it go. My daughter was 4 years old. We recognized, I can't remember how, I think she was banging on toy pianos, that she had true musical ability. So we went out and bought her an upright piano. It was kind of beat up, didn't have all 88 keys. It's only $300 or $400. She loved it. She started playing, and by about the age of 6, we recognized that she actually had musical talent worth pursuing. So we enrolled her in a class with a piano teacher, and once a week she played piano, and by the age of 8, she was so good, the piano teacher took us aside and said, "You got to buy her a grand piano." Now, the guys in the room, follow along with me. Grand pianos start at $10,000. Then, depending on whether you want the Liberace diamond-studded, cover, it can go up to $80,000, $90,000. She's 8 years old. She's good with the piano, but, do you have an extra $10,000 or $20,000 lying around? I did my usual kicking and screaming, and eventually I went for it. We bought the grand piano. When the delivery date was scheduled, 2 or 3 days out, the movers were going to bring the piano. I mentioned to my daughter that in trade, we were going to give in the upright piano. We get $300 or $400 off. That's the way they do it. Give you a deal. When my daughter heard that the upright piano was going to be leaving the house, she broke into a sob. Not a kid's wailing, but kind of a death of a parent kind of sob. "It's the only piano I've ever known. Why do we have to get rid of it? Can't we keep them both?" She went on like this for days. I did everything in my fatherly powers to tell her that days after the old piano was gone and the new piano was there, she wasn't even going to miss it. Wrong approach. I talked to her about how we really didn't have the room and how it would be so nice to just have the one and focus on that. Still didn't work. No matter what I did, she went on and on like this for days. The big day was approaching. I knew I had to get her to a place where she could accept the new piano, let go of the attachment. We took pictures of her standing next to the piano. We took pictures of her playing the piano. The whole deal. Finally, out of desperation, and I guess just sheer luck, with about an hour to go before the movers were coming, I said to her, "Val, look at it this way. They're going to bring you a brand new, beautiful piano. They're going to take the old one. I know you're going to miss it, but they're going to bring it back to the store. And they're going to put it in the store, and some other parents are going to walk through the store, and they're going to see that piano, and they're going to buy it for their four-year-old little girl." And her face changed, and I knew she was able to let go of her attachment when she said, "Or maybe it'll be a little boy." That lesson alone impacted me. If an 8-year-old can give up a prized possession like that, which is so dear to her, I could learn to give up stuff that I've been hanging on to. You can learn to give up stuff that you've been hanging on to. We can all get better at this. We really can.